with particular focus on human trafficking, wildlife crime, as well as counterfeit drug crimes. I'd like to welcome onto the podium and to join me up for the panel, the following panelists, please. I'd like to call on Madame Ruth Juliet Kashange. Juliet is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. She is a child rights and anti-human trafficking expert with extensive experience working with human rights organizations. Thank you so much for making that time to join us. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you very much. You can have your seats. I'm going to call on the panel, and then we've got some distinguished guests who have just joined us, and we're going to take a moment to recognize them. But let me invite my panelists to the podium. Jim Karani is a wildlife lawyer. He currently works as an attorney and advocate of the High Court of Kenya as the Legal Affairs Manager for Wildlife Direct. This is a non-profit organization operating in Kenya to respond to wildlife threats. And our third panelist this afternoon is Brian Donnelly. Mr. Donnelly is responsible for coordinating investigations of counterfeit Pfizer pharmaceutical products in the United States, in Canada, and the Caribbean. Thank you very much. He's the Global Security Director looking after the Americas. Now, before we start our panel, I'd like to please hand over to representatives from NBPA to please acknowledge our distinguished guests that have just joined us this afternoon. Madam, if I may hand over to you.
You can always count on the AG from DC. Thank you, Carl. Thank you so much. Again, we are so excited for the partnership between CWAG and the NBPA. I am Sherry Boston, the District Attorney for DeKalb County, and also this year's conference chair on behalf of the National Black Prosecutors. I wanted to take a moment to recognize Judge Doyle and Judge Dillard, both here from the Georgia Court of Appeals. If you could just stand for a moment, please, and be recognized. We've been very grateful for much of the support that we've gotten all week long from our judges, our elected officials, and the dignitaries that just want to come out and take an opportunity not only to welcome you to Atlanta, but to acknowledge all the hard work that these organizations are doing. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here, judges.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go into our first panel discussion for this afternoon. And this is really going to be unpacking the transnational crime threat in Africa through the lens of human trafficking, of wildlife crime, as well as counterfeit drugs crime. Now, we've spent a considerable amount of time this morning speaking about human trafficking. So I'm going to come to that one in a moment. So let me start off with Jim first. And Jim, I'd like for you to maybe just paint a picture for us. We haven't had the opportunity to talk about the wildlife trafficking and the poaching numbers, the scale of that particular crime. So maybe let's just start there. How big is this problem that we're talking about?
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to be brought to you. It's a massive privilege to be able to talk about what I think is one of the world's most global concerns, one of the most pressing issues that need to be brought to the fore. Now, most of you raised your hands earlier today when you were asked whether you've been to Africa or you want to go to Africa. Now, there's a chance you won't go to the entire continent, but there's an absolute chance that you will target a country that pretty much has wildlife. Now, there's a very simple reason. We are a very beautiful people with amazing cultures, but we don't pay top dollar to come and see us, sadly. You come to see our wildlife, because somehow America found a way to finish all of its wildlife, right? So it turns out that the only thing that we truly have in Africa that completely distinguishes the continent out of all other continents is our biodiversity, the richness of it. The mere fact that you can walk from Somalia all the way to Cameroon seeing all types of elephants. the mere fact that now all that is at risk. There's a new report that was launched by the UN that shows that we are smack in the middle of the sixth extinction level crisis. Now, what we mean by this is we're losing more wildlife than we can count. Now, to give you perspective, since all of you seem to love elephants, I will use elephants as my example of this. Africa lost 100,000 elephants in 3 years during the poaching crisis, just 5 years ago. Now, to paint the picture for you, the Masai Mara has maybe 4,000 elephants. So we're talking of, the Masai Mara pretty much 250 times. It's just insane, just the amount of elephants we lost. Again, the volume of wildlife crime, the cost of crime involved. Now we're talking of high value wildlife products, which in all fairness are ending up in, as Madam brought it out clearly, in destination countries where there seems to be a demand for it, despite there being bans against the trade of these wildlife products. Then the more fundamental question is, how is it that fresh ivory is ending up in Asia? How is it that fresh ivory is ending up in Europe? Because clearly there is a system that is bringing all these products into these countries. So they're not only just taking our wildlife, it's a double whammy because we are losing the #1 revenue earner in Africa, which is tourism. Tourism is highly impacted by this. You don't want to come and see our peaks. You have amazing mountains here. You can go to, you can ski in actually. You haven't come to see our rivers. You have massive rivers where they come from. You've come to see our wildlife. If that is not there, then you don't come.
And maybe let's stay on the revenue question because I think the latest numbers indicate that the region, the East African region is bleeding in the region of about $3.5 billion per year in terms of lost revenue from tourism because of wildlife trafficking. Now, again, when we go back to some of the earlier conversations, we're also seeing that it's even much harder to prosecute these crimes when they have a transnational element to them. And a lot of the national parks, we see that these are shared by several countries, and this is true in East Africa as well. So let's bring that number into focus and the extent to which it's been difficult or challenging to really prosecute those that are part of trafficking of wildlife and poaching.
So sometimes when you look at these statistics, they are quite gloomy and this kind of scream of doom. In all fairness, let me use the example of Kenya. Kenya has the third worst police service in the world. It at least has Yemen. So it's, I think, Nigeria, then I think another country, then us. Which shows you our law enforcement is pretty much not up to scratch. Then there is something about highly fueled and heavily organized wildlife crime not mixing well with corrupt and underpaid and motivated government officials. Then of course you're talking about 5 billion. It was readjusted to $5 billion being lost in tourism revenue. And then at the same time, we're talking about cost of crime across the board, which is now around $23 billion. Now, this are huge amounts. And when people ask them, how is this money moving around? Someone will have seen it. I used to work in the banking sector. And if you move $100,000, I would say, hey, there's something going on here. So for 23 billion shillings to move, it's a massive issue. So they're affecting our own institutions where corrupt officials can no longer function. They're affecting our monetary transfer systems, for example. All of us are busy targeting banks, when in reality we shouldn't be looking there. We should be looking at the Islamic banking system. Unfortunately, Hawala is being used by wildlife traffickers to move money because it leaves no transaction trail. Literally, it's transacting dollars. So prosecutors interested in money laundering issues, this is where you jump in. And just to show you the level of the work that CWAG and its partners is kind of doing in Africa, is to put into perspective the changes that have happened in the last 8 years in Africa. And to be specific, in Kenya, it's not even good for milk. 4% is insane. So we started figuring out that prosecutors and investigators were saying, well, it's because we don't know. Because of the 8 months we spent in the academy, 7 was spent marching. So we said, okay, great. So we're going to teach you, impart you child advocacy skills, give you enough information that allows you to bring proper cases to court. That number shot up to 95%. It deserves an applause. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. But now here's the crazy bit. That was only applied only for low-level wildlife. I'm in cases where 8 cases relating to 20 tons of elephant ivory. 20 tons. And three of those cases have ended up in acquittals, the other five are going that way. So why is it that we can't seem to prosecute cases where there seems to be a whole lot of evidence, but if I find you with grams of, I reckon, Islam, you in for 5 years or life in prison. So clearly, problems are massively into corruption. Secondly, conflict of laws. Third, the mere fact that it seems that countries that share elephants or even share wildlife don't even have the same legal response to the same issue. Tanzania, for example, has a fine of 5,000 shillings. We have a fine of 5 million shillings. So traffickers will always go offshore and go to the country where they can get the less risk.
And again, thank you for that because it surfaces the fragmentation. I mean, when we talk about the African continent, we are talking about 54 or 55, depending on whether you count rich or not. Different countries with their own laws, their own regulations, their own policies, and that fragmentation shows up in these examples that you shared with us. Let me come to you next, Brian, because we also haven't had the opportunity to talk about counterfeit drugs. Scale, trends, do we have numbers that just give us a sense of how significant this challenge is?
The numbers are all over the place, so rather than dwell on numbers, obviously they're very, very large. I want to point out the fact that counterfeit medicines or even substandard medicines is truly a worldwide problem. And what makes it, and that makes it very, very difficult to investigate. Just where you have differences in countries within one continent. In the case of counterfeit medicines, it's transcontinental in the sense that many or a lot of the drugs are made in Asia, made in China, made in India, made in Pakistan. Actual absolute ingredient may be made in one country, the tablets made in another country, the distributors may be still in another country, and that is a big, big problem for law enforcement because just trying to get law enforcement in one country to work on a problem is tough enough. But when you have to go across not only countries but continents to coordinate an investigation from start to finish, it's very, very, very difficult. As far as Africa is concerned, the biggest problem in Africa, from my standpoint, is the possibility of resistance to the drugs. Because in Africa, a lot of the drugs that are being counterfeited or are substandard have to do with diseases such as AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria. And it would be terrible if those drugs, these counterfeits, had no active ingredient. They'd actually be better if they had no active ingredient. But what happens in some of these cases, they're substandard. They may have some active ingredient, or they may release a certain amount of active ingredient, but not enough to cure the person. And as a result of that, what you end up getting is resistance, meaning that the organisms will mutate and actually become ineffective for the drug. So not only is counterfeits, where people don't get cured, a problem, but you also have the long-term problem of maybe wiping out drugs that are currently effective.
Could you share with us some of the your experiences around how these crimes are penalized? Because when you read about the production and dissemination of counterfeit drugs, oftentimes the language around it is that this is an actual crime against humanity. People lose their lives because they've taken these specific drugs. Do the penalties match this understanding that this is a real crime against humanity?
Unfortunately not, because many times even here in the United States, where we have pretty decent laws and pretty good sentencing guidelines for people who counterfeit medicines, even here we don't get the kinds of sentences that we'd like to see when you consider how dangerous these products are. Probably the most despicable thing that you can see with a counterfeit pharmaceutical would be in the area, in my opinion, in the area of counterfeit cancer medications. In those particular cases, you're talking about people who are looking for that silver bullet. They're looking for that one opportunity to beat that disease. And then you have people who are manufacturing these drugs, and in many cases, they don't even have the active ingredient in them. So now, this poor person who's hoping for a cure doesn't even have the chance to get that particular cure. As far as sentencing is concerned, it varies tremendously from country to country. As I said, here in the United States, it's pretty good, but it's still far from where we'd like it to be. Even Canada, for example, where I do a fair amount of work, the sentences are quite poor.
So sentencing generally is quite poor. So let me come back to you, Juliet. We spent or we had the opportunity to be exposed to quite a bit around human trafficking trends in different parts of the African continent today. But one of the things that we perhaps haven't spoken about is the capacity around the regional response and the continental response. I mean, we've spoken a lot about, the global nature of these crimes, but one would assume that if we had the mechanisms and the capacity to respond regionally and continentally, that we might be able to ensure that this doesn't become the global problem that it is. Any thoughts on that?
Well, thank you, and it's really amazing to be here. Just to talk a little bit about, we've had, as you say, a very general, perspective about human trafficking. But when it comes to, initiatives that we have taken as a region in Africa, we do not have a law specifically, other than the national laws, we do not have a law that addresses human trafficking in Africa, other than the African Charter on Human Rights, Human and People's Rights. But even that is not applied across the board. The EAC, the East African Community, also has a law specifically in human trafficking, but we have not had the chance to implement it. Now, other than those two laws, I want to draw your attention to a different kind of a case. Recently, Kenya has had very many cases of people who are trafficked from Asia into Kenya. And we have the opportunity to take them back home as victims of trafficking. But we do not have the opportunity to be able to prosecute the big guys, the guys that we want to find, not the owner of the bar or the owner of the club or the brothel that they're working in. And our relationships with, for instance, Asia, some of these countries are Nepal, India, we have a good trade relationship, and I think Sarah has mentioned this. But we do not have a relationship that allows us, for instance, to be able to prosecute some of these people. Because when we speak to the victims that we're able to rescue from the brothels and all these places, when we speak to them and we ask them who recruited you from back home, they really have no idea. But when we speak to our counterparts, so for instance, an advocate who is working on human trafficking from Nepal, they'll be able to point us in the right direction, but they cannot be able to prosecute these people, and neither can we prosecute the people. So forget the problem just around Africa. The capacity to be able to prosecute across borders, especially on issues of human trafficking, is wanting.
So let's stay a little bit, because I think that's a really interesting case study, an example that you've shared with us. And again, this morning we spoke about human trafficking, but I know that you also have a keen focus on the rights of the most vulnerable in society, and that is the children. And so let's talk a little bit about the push factors to child trafficking in particular, and what that kind of looks like in your region, and if you're able to give a continental view, that would be helpful as well. Can I ask Jim that we share the microphone? Thanks.
Well, thank you. When it comes to children, it's heartbreaking to first of all imagine that a mother, a father, a relative will actually push the child into trafficking. That is the first push factor. It's just the family. It's just a lot of the cases I have dealt with. One in particular I speak to is I got a call on my personal telephone number, which doesn't always happen. Someone called the office, and they said I was given a number by UNICEF to come and rescue a young girl who was being abused by the employer. I said a young girl. So I went to the police station and I said I need police officers to make an arrest. They said we'll give you escort. We don't know what you're going to do. So I went up to this house and I knocked the door and I said to this girl, "Hi, I'm here to check on you. Are you okay? Where are you from?" And when she spoke Swahili, I realized she's not from Kenya. She's from Tanzania. I asked her how old she was. She said she's 15 years. When I asked her what she was doing in that house, she said she's been working for this woman who's from Congo for 2 years, and she moved with her from Tanzania into Congo. And I said, "How did you get here? Where did you come from? Where are your parents?" And she said her mother died, but her father gave her to her grandmother. Her grandmother gave her out to go and work for this woman. And when we took her to the police station, and she narrated the story to the police said, "Well, madam, I don't know what I'm looking at. This looks like, it's just maybe she was bitten, she was abused. What else?" And I said, "This is child trafficking. If this girl was in Tanzania, she'd be in school. She wouldn't be working. But she's been out of school for 2 years because she's been working for this woman." And I came to realize, so out of this case, luckily we were able to rescue her, put her in give her vocational training, and waited for until she was able to she got to 18 years, and then we took her back home and, linked her with an organization in Tanzania. But the push factors in Africa are interesting. So I said one is parents. People talk a lot about poverty. Poverty is really not a push factor in Africa because I think everybody's poor. The push factor is a change of lifestyle. So if children are used to drinking milk every day, the following day they wake up and they can no longer drink milk, that in itself tilts and makes them look for that milk whichever way they can. Education, lack of education is another push factor. Then there is this new phenomenon of begging, and it is sort of to make sure that the parents have something to, I don't know, to eat at the end of the day, because there is a lot of unemployment. So that in itself pushes the parents or the relatives to push children out there. And then there's this lack of knowledge and information on human trafficking as well, that really draws the children into trafficking. But finally, as someone said, and it has been repeated here severally, is the demand. The demand for cheap labor, the demand for sex, the demand, all this demand is the one that places children in that vulnerable position to actually be trafficked.
So thank you very much, Juliet. And it seems as if this question of poverty has come back to the fore. And I just want to test this idea with you, Brian, and I'll come back to you, Jim. Because when we look at where we see the highest penetration of counterfeit drugs, you do see 30 times greater penetration in poor countries. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on whether you think poverty reads the ground that creates the demand for counterfeit drugs, and as an extension of that, whether you think Big Pharma is doing enough to bring down the cost of drugs so as to deal with this problem at a structural level.
Cost isn't where I spend most of my time, but I think yes. I think obviously people are always looking for medication that's going to save their lives. So whatever they're going to do, they're going to do whatever they need to do to get a medicine that they hope is going to help them if they're sick. And unfortunately, the people who make these products dwell on that, on the fact that people want a particular product because they have a problem that they're trying to solve. I think a lot of NGOs and a lot of others have try to send medication to these countries, but a lot of things get involved with the process. Part of it is corruption. Part of it is just the regulatory systems or the distribution systems are not as tight as they should be, and products may get diverted. Even when people want to send product to a country, it can get diverted because that product is worth so much more elsewhere. And then it gets replaced with a product that may be substandard or may be counterfeited. So it's not just poverty that runs this, that causes the problem. It's a calamity of errors, I think, that adds to it.
So I'm very keen to open up this conversation to the audience, but before I do that, I'd like to ask the three of you one question. And Jim, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to this question first. We've spent a little bit of time in this panel outlining and surfacing different types of transnational crimes, their scales, and the trends behind some of the push factors, some of the demand factors. I guess the question for me at this point is, why should US prosecutors care? And how would you respond to that? what we've been speaking about is fundamentally something that is ravaging the African continent. Why should the men and the women who are sitting in this room care about it at all?
So the coolest thing about this is United States prosecutors really care about this. And the best example I have is an indictment under the Racketeering Act, I think it's RICO, where now finally, after convincing the Americans that wildlife trafficking is sexy enough as an offense to be read without you throwing sprinkling terrorism. So now wildlife trafficking is being seen as a serious offense by itself, and as a result, we have one of the biggest trafficking networks. Three of the greatest kingpins have now been extradited into the United States. Now, the first two were the Akasha brothers, who have been selling drugs in Kenya for the longest time ever. And because of their corruption and their connections in high levels of government, they could never be brought to justice. US prosecutors should know for sure that our criminals are so scared of you that they will do everything in their power. No matter where you're sitting right now, they're so scared of you, they hear in our country will do everything for them. Because they know once they're extradited, they will be brought to justice. This is why you should care. Second reason why you should care. One, they are abusing your financial system. They're using dollars to transact through Hawala, and they're doing it right in front of your faces. And they're doing it knowing that no one can catch them because there's simply no transaction trail. Now, the United States has now adversely pointed out Kenya has a weak financial system. And just so you know, in Kenya, we have one of the best financial systems, so that tells you how Africa is in general. So we're being told that we are losing a lot of money, moving around our markets, around our economy, and no one knows where it's going, what's happening, and who it's going to, what it's funding. So US prosecutors, you already care. Just do a little bit more. I can give you names, and I know them by name. I know where they are. Help us get them. Then second, third, help us repatriate their proceeds of crime. To be honest, traffickers don't care about their product. So once in a while, the election observationists and law enforcement, impound 1 ton of ivory, which we plaster on our newspapers as a victory. Have massive problems as to law enforcement advertising that a bust is a serious achievement to them. It's like a parent walking into their child's bedroom and finding a kilo of cocaine and then posting on Facebook, hey, I found a kilo of cocaine in my bedroom. They're not asking why is it there in the first place. You have the prerogative of making sure that that doesn't happen. Our law enforcement system is, for lack of a better word, crippled. It needs support. We need information from the United States. We need transport proceeds from the United States. We need you to truly activate those mutual legal assistance treaties. We need you to activate those extradition treaties and use them to the advantage of prosecutions.
Juliet, the men and the women sitting in this room, why should they care?
First, it's in furtherance to the fight against slavery. I mean, if there's anything else that should move your heart is that, supporting us to combat human trafficking is literally furthering that fight against slavery. Second thing is because, there's something called the US Tick Report, and the US tells Africa, well, not really Africa, but a lot of countries, all the other countries in the world, how you're doing when it comes to fighting human trafficking. And so far they've said, Kenya, you're doing great, but the prosecution numbers are pretty low. So who is better to help us than, the American prosecutors? And thirdly, I think there's something to learn from Africa, from our practice. I believe, I was here last year, if you allow me, I was here last year and I visited 4 states and about 10 cities. It was the most exhausting trip. But I visited prosecutors and police and law enforcement and judges as well. And I realized there is something for the US also to learn from us as Africa, and especially how we combat trafficking that feeds the three, the act, the means, and the purpose, and not just focusing on sexual exploitation. So that is why we all should care. Thank you.
Thank you. So Brian, before I open up to the audience, through the lens of counterfeit drugs, why should you as prosecutors care about this problem?
Well, mostly because it's a worldwide problem. It's not just a problem in Africa. It's a problem here in the United States. It's a problem everywhere around the world. The money that's being made from counterfeit medicines is astronomical, not just in Africa, but worldwide. That's what's pushing it, and we need to think more in terms of these cases that come to the United States. Look more in terms of the money laundering aspect of it as well, using the counterfeiting as a predicate act, if you will, and then going down that other road.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to open up the conversation a little bit. We've just heard, why U.S. prosecutors should care, and later on in the program, we'll get an opportunity to further unpack how we move from caring to acting, and how does this particular partnership enable you to actually get into the arena and be part of solving for the problem. So let's open it up and see if we have any questions or any comments. I've got a question from the Director General of NAPTIP right here in the front. And so let's take that one first. Madam, let's get the microphone to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this beautiful panel session. You see, the truth is that for the last 15, 20 years, we keep talking about the same thing. We go for conferences all over the world. We know what the problems are. We should be talking about solutions. We should, forget about all of these bureaucratic bottlenecks that have made things so difficult for us. Information sharing has been a major problem between countries. It's easy for destination countries to say yes, 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 but they don't share information, and that's bitter truth. Information sharing, they should learn to trust Africa and Africans. Why should we trust you with our information and you can't trust me with your information? So the earlier they begin to share information, truthfully and transparently, the better. There should be joint operations. We know what to do. Have joint operations with the countries of origin and countries of destination. Together, we should also have the mutual legal assistance. It's very important as well. And clamp down on cartels. Most of the time, they know who they are. These guys are from up there. We need to crush the guys from up there and stop dealing with the little agents, the little boys. We know who they are. Let's go after them. Let's go after their resources and cripple them. Let's freeze their accounts, confiscate their assets, and go after their finances and take it to wherever it should be. Sometimes you see cases where, some monies are coming in and it's obvious that these are, money laundry and stuff, but they take the money. And then when the countries of origin say, hey, they start saying, oh, this is when the owner comes for the money, well, we are suspecting, money laundering, and they hold on to the money. So what about corruption? Who is corrupt? Then everybody's corrupt. So we need to, take these things very seriously if we really want to make it happen. Thank you.
So thank you very much, DG. So more of a comment to say we need to move beyond the talk. We really need to focus on the action, but also just surfacing some of the practical ways in which we can act. And one of those ways is the sharing of information, really backing down on joint operations, and also making sure that we are collaboratively looking at cartels. Now, I want to see if we have a direct question from the floor before I give each of you an opportunity to comment on that statement. Is there another question, whether it's on wildlife, trafficking, even on counterfeit drugs, or even child trafficking? All right, so we don't have another question from the floor, so maybe let's just take a minute or two to reflect on the actions and what is possible. And then, Jim, I'm going to start with you because in one of your responses, you began to already reflect on some of the work that the CWAG Africa Alliance Partnership has been able to achieve in Kenya. If you had a wish list, if you had a magic wand, what kind of further collaboration and further partnership do you think would be most effective in your area of wildlife trafficking to really begin to see a reverse trend in some of the numbers that you shared with us earlier?
So the best way to demonstrate this is a quick 20-second story. 5 elephants are poached in Tsavo National Park, our premier national park. We take 3 choppers, fly down there. We have a Belgian trapper dog that was graciously given by the Belgian government. We put it on the chopper, fly it down to Tsavo, release it in the middle of nowhere. It runs and runs and runs, tracking a sense, ends up in a manyatta, and sits, because that's the standard operating procedure for dogs. We drop down.
So just pause. What is a manyatta, just to make sure that we all...
It's a hut. It's a hut. A small hut. So we break into the hut and we find pieces of ivory. So this is a slum town case, right? Any prosecutor can see the issues. So it comes to court. The ranger who was handling the dog is told to, present the evidence in court. So I'm literally seated there. The prosecutor is going, is like, so what arrested? How did you arrest this other man? How did you arrest this guy? Say, yeah, the dog arrested you. No, we're like, no, no. What truly happened? Yeah, like I said, the dog arrested him. So now we're seated there. As a prosecutor, there's a standard procedure. 5 questions you have asked. Simple trial advocacy steps. What kind of a breed this dog is? Or what kind of breed is a detector dog? Your normal Chihuahua, or is it a Strapper dog? Does it have a record of detection? Was it well fed that day? Literally 5 sentences, and I would have won that case. The entire time I'm like, oh my God, we need to touch this, to take this very well mannered ranger, very well committed ranger, a ranger who has never undergone this type of training, a ranger who is perfectly normal and perfectly at home in the wild, but completely on Mars when they come to us. We need to help them be able to present the evidence that they have so we can, finally get convictions in these cases. So again, Adele back, you've seen all these posters behind me. You've seen trial advocacy. Now, the evidence is perfect. It's going nowhere. It's ivory. It won't rot. But trust me, they hide around their competence. And the minute we teach them how to do this, based on the best practices which you all have, then we might as well just change everything in our country. And I'll tell you this, when I was studying law school in Kenya, I was told where to find the law. Literally. I'll be told that's a constitution, exam is coming. When I came to study in the United States, I was actually finally taught the law. You have the best standard of law. We need this type of brains back in our country. One, to inspire our prosecutors so they know they can do better. And then two, also, CWAG does an amazing job of bringing in female prosecutors, female judges in our countries. I can't tell you how heavy this weighs on many of our girls who have never thought that they will ever get to such positions. You inspire them in ways you can't believe. Then, of course, there are the technical resources, materials that they can read from. So, for the very first time, if you want to go back to the motherland and give back, this is how you do it.
So, magic wand, Juliet, magic wand, 3 wishes. What would you want to see coming out of partnerships and collaborations from like-minded institutions like CWAG and NBPA, working together with African nations? What would turn the tide in your view, especially when it comes to human trafficking?
Well, human trafficking is all about money, like all trafficking. So one thing that hasn't been tested, and I think we should test it, is hit the traffickers where it hurts the most. It's about money, so we go for the money. One of the things I've been proposing, and I'm hoping that CWAG is able to, make this a reality, is we need to take one of those many cases we have in Kenya on human trafficking and go for the money. So immediately after a conviction, then go ahead and get and do asset recovery and use the money to give back to the victim and also put it in a fund. We have a fund within our law that has never been done because there is no money. Jim shares, I'm sure he shares the sentiment. The government keeps saying we don't have money to put into those funds. So it would be wonderful if, and I know the US does a good job with plea bargaining, and I'm hoping that one case could actually plea bargain and demand that the perpetrator gives away about $300,000 instead of facing 30 years imprisonment, and take that money and give it back to the victim. That is my number one wish. The second one is we need, as Dame Julie has said, we need to start this regional conversation. In Africa, it's missing, and I'm hoping that CWAG not only looks at and focuses within the countries and nationals, but also like the EAC, for instance. Already we have a law, we've never implemented it. So this is an opportunity right there. And thirdly, is the people who are mostly forgotten. So if the prosecutors do their job right, the next person who should do their job right is the judge or the magistrate. And most of the time, I have walked into court and the magistrates and judges have said, educate me. Which law is this? What are we looking at? So I'm hoping that CWAG is able to bring in our, judges and magistrates and judicial officers, and help them to understand this phenomenon, but not just on human trafficking, but also how it links to these other crimes like domestic violence, like sexual abuse, and stealing, and all these things. So that is really my wish list.
Thank you very much. So, Ryan, if you were given the opportunity to have any resource and any skill at your disposal, what are the three things that you would ask for?
I think what I want, yeah, I'd love to have everything, but we can only have so much. But what I want to point out though is what some of the things that we are doing to kind of help with the education, which I think is a very big deal for law enforcement in particular, because they need to know what the problem is and how to address it. So some of the stuff that we do, my counterparts in Africa, we do training of law enforcement. We also work with, HSI, Homeland Security in the United States, does regional training as well. And we usually will have one or more pharmaceutical companies go to those training to help train the individuals that are going to be enforcing the laws. The other things that we do, and it comes only after the training has been taken. So once the law enforcement agents know what they're doing and how to approach it, what we're able to do, we do it a lot around the world, the United States, for example, we refer cases that we initiate to law enforcement for them to take the next steps. And we can do the same types of things in Africa where, unfortunately in Africa, you have a breach of the legitimate supply chain, which we don't have here. But what we're able to do in those situations is we can do what's known as market surveys, as long as the laws will allow us to do it, where we can go out and make purchases, Pfizer will make the purchases to see who's potentially counterfeiting, and then transfer that information to law enforcement. That's two things. We develop intelligence for them that they may not have the resources to develop on their own. And two, we also have our own forensic laboratories, which can do the testing in a timely fashion, which can get that information to them. So I think to the extent we're doing that is fine, but what we really probably want to do is to broaden that as much as we can, and to hopefully get laws in the different countries that allow us to do it, because in some cases we're not able to make those purchases because we're not law enforcement. But to get those laws where we can do it, and then to just help as best we can.
Thank you very much, Brian. And I think again underscoring the importance of information that was raised, because what operates in the darkness needs to be brought to light and to the surface so that it can be prosecuted. So the sharing of information then becomes almost a critical linkage that underlies these partnerships. So, ladies and gentlemen, may I please ask you to give a round of applause to my panelists as they move forward. Thank you very much to the panelists, not only for sharing yet again additional aspects of transnational crimes in Africa, but also reflecting deeply on what can be done in terms of the actions. And I think that's important that we begin to look at what is possible, what can I do, and that being the central question reverberating for each of us. At this point, it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Assistant General Counsel for Pfizer, which, as we know, is the world's largest pharmaceutical company. Mr. Marcus Green is going to come and speak to us as well. He is also, of course, a board member of CWAG, and he's speaking on the theme, A Stakeholder's View, Our Journey and Story, and Why We Should Join Us. And I think we're now really beginning to get to the heart of, if this is the nature and the scope of the problem, what can we do about it together? So can we give him a big round of applause as he comes up?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We can do a little better than that. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My cup runneth over. Today's absolutely tremendous. And so, one of the things in coming up, talking to all of you, I know many people in the audience, many of you over the years, this is my organization, and I feel like every time I'm at a conference, I'm coming home. And so, we have bios, and we talk about the work that we do, and we talk about who we are in terms of what positions we hold. But that's really what we do, and that's not who we are. And so what I thought I would do before walking you through why you should get engaged and be part of this is to tell you who I am. Now, so I grew up in New Jersey, the son of the late Reverend W.C. Green, Estelle Green. I was number 7 of 8 kids. We grew up in a two-room house in a very dilapidated structure that I showed you a picture, you wouldn't think it was the United States of America. But I'm not complaining. We had love and discipline, and I had 2 parents who saw that education was centered for us. And as a kid, you don't know any better, right? When you're poor, you have food, you have shelter, you're running around. So I'm going to take a story that I look back on with great fondness and laughter now. It was the moment I realized that we had absolutely nothing, that we were poor. And I'll tell you how this story went. So we lived in this dilapidated structure, what I would call like a country ghetto, right? Dirt road in a rural area of New Jersey, all black neighborhood. If you could build it or tack it together, you can live in it. And so, as a kid, I was about 12 years old. We had standard routine in the summer when we were in New Jersey. My mother would put together some kind of lemonade and a pile of sandwiches, and the deal was you stayed outside unless you had to do number 2. And so this was a day like no other. And so I looked with this kind of long dirt driveway. I looked down the driveway and I saw what I thought, 12 years old, was an army troop coming down the driveway. So I ran inside and knocked on the door. Mother said, "Do you have to do number 2?" "No, there's soldiers coming down the driveway." Well, what I thought were soldiers was a Boy Scout troop led by a 16, 17-year-old white young man, all white Boy Scout troop. So my mother comes out and says, "Can I help you?" And he goes, "Well, we're going camping." And she says, "Where?" And he points to what was our yard. And my mother said, "Well, this is our home." And he said, "Ma'am, people live here?" So I had that moment of clarity that somehow we didn't have as much as I thought we had. It was okay. Another aspect of growing up, one of the things that I'm sure many of you in the room can relate, summers. Most of our summers, my father was from Macon, Georgia. Mother's from Virginia, so we split our summers. You know, the summer vacation consisted of a Greyhound bus ticket for about $50 to either Virginia or Georgia. And I'm telling this story for a very important reason, because it feeds into why I'm here and why I'm working on this particular project. So one of the things that my father used to always tell my siblings and I about is the origins of our last name. So about 60 miles north of Macon, where he grew up, there's a place called Greene County, Georgia. And in Greene County, Georgia, there was one of the largest ownerships of slaves in Greene County. And so he would always say that, your name is a slave name, it comes from Greene County, Georgia. Some folks dropped the E, some folks kept the E on Greene. And one particular summer, we're in Georgia, and we happened to drive with my father to Greene County. He's pointing out some of these dilapidated old plantations where our name derived from. And I said to my father, I said, doesn't this make you angry? And he pulled the car over, or the truck that we were in over, and he looked at me and he said, boy, the world is bigger than Greene County, Georgia. So that always stuck with me in terms of how I saw my life and how I saw what was possible. Because too many of us look at our history and mark our history. We begin it and we end it with slavery, right? But we know, we should know, that before we were ever descendants of slaves, we were descendants of kings and queens on the continent of Africa. And so it's important for us to do our part. There is no greater feeling than going to some of these countries. Now, can you a show of hands? I want to see how many people have been on the continent in some capacity. Now, how many people have been on the continent and have interacted with government in some way? As a black man, as a black person, there is no greater feeling, for me personally, than engaging the highest institutions in these countries. And everyone in power looks like you. And you start to understand how the other tribe feels. You start to get it a little bit. And so this program and this project and this partnership that we've undertaken is a real opportunity. It's a real opportunity to engage and to get involved and help try to solve some of the most important issues of our day, and do it on our continent. And when I say our continent, I think we have to look past what we traditionally view in places that we traditionally visit, right? So, as Black Americans, we have no problem going to Europe and the Caribbean, but we have to think past that. Because if you're an Italian American, at some point, when you get the shekels, you're gonna go to Italy. If you're an Irish American, at some point, when you get the shekels, you're going to Ireland. And if you're a Jewish American, at some point, you're making the pilgrimage to Israel. So we need to look at this the same way and get involved and do our part. So what I want to do is kind of walk you through some of the opportunities that exist for all of you, because the talent and the capabilities is in this room. And so I want this to be a mechanism of recruitment and encouragement, and to help tear down some of the stereotypes that exist about the continent. Because you hear all sorts of crazy things about what people think is going on the continent. Is there running water? All kinds of crazy questions. Is there electricity? All based on some type of fantasy, stereotypical Tarzan nonsense. And we need to get away from that and understand that there is amazing states in this, in the various countries in the continent. There's 52 countries, and they're all diverse, and they all have different things to offer. All right, so I'm going to see if I can, there we go. So since 2016, we've been on this journey. And as you heard, we were working on how to combat transnational crimes. And so when we say training, I don't like to say teachers, we say facilitators. Because we don't come to these markets and come to these countries from a perspective of, this is the United States of America, and we're going to tell you what to do and how to prosecute and how to handle these cases. What we do is we ask our local partners, what is it that you need? How can we help you build capacity? And then we engage in a conversation, and we need facilitators to do that. So it's a shared experience. And so we are, like I said, we're in about 8 countries on the continent. We're in Kenya. And when I think of Kenya, I think of the beautiful people of Kenya. I think of the Maasai region. I think of the wildlife that's in Kenya. When I think of Nigeria, I think of the culture, the music, and the movie industry that's there. When I think of Rwanda, I think of the rule of law. It's one of the most beautiful, clean, amazing places that you could possibly go anywhere in the world, and it's on the continent of Africa. South Africa. Well, everybody loves Cape Town. Malawi, beautiful, beautiful place. Uganda, Zambia, and the like. So, what are our core mandates? Combating human trafficking. We heard a lot about human trafficking. There is no greater tragedy that we face in terms of people than human trafficking. Think about the notion of using someone over and over and over again by force. It cuts across political lines, religious lines. There's nobody that's in favor of human trafficking but the traffickers. Anti-wildlife trafficking, we heard a lot about that. Countering corruption, anti-counterfeit drugs, anti-money laundering, all important issues. And what we try to do is we try to bring folks together to do primarily 2 things. One, we want to bring awareness. So in a lot of places, the power to convene, the power to, when it comes to human trafficking, to let individuals know what to look for and who to report the information to is very, very important. And then we do some training programs and some workshops where we actually have individuals and we're putting them in the same room, victim advocates, and all coming up with ideas, sharing ideas, best practices, having a conversation as to how can we move the needle. We do a little bit on legislative drafting. We do some consulting with respect to that and advising, but all with the input of the local folks on the ground. That's the key. Youth engagement is another big part of what we try to do. We engage the law schools in training. The idea, and then there are some of the brightest minds in the law schools in many of these countries. And the law students are eager to learn, they're engaged, and so we try to engage them very early. How do we do it? So it's a combination. Thanks to Karen at CWAG, thanks to individuals, state attorneys generals who volunteer their time in their offices, like Carl Racine, Tish James, and others, so we really appreciate it. And so we work with organizations, both internationally and domestically, to kind of string together these programs. It's really a combination and a collaboration. And because you need both content for the training, and you need facilitators, people who are willing to come and spend the time and energy to do it. And we've had a tremendous amount of exchange and knowledge sharing is a key component. From these workshops, we try to disseminate it. We're active on social media, and we're continually trying to build the program. We have about 8 countries. We want to go further, but we need to recruit. So we're constantly recruiting. When I say recruit, I mean we need other companies to step up, like Pfizer, and put their money where their mouths are, and not engage simply because they have a plant in South Africa. They need to engage because it's the right thing to do. They need to engage because there has to be a sense of responsibility on the part of corporations just because they occupy this planet. So everyone has to do their part. So these are, again, just some of the national relationships with state effective investigations. CWAG understood, I mean, from the very beginning, this program wasn't that easy. Karen made it sound very easy to get it off the ground. We actually shopped this to a couple of other organizations that did not have the vision to understand or the importance to understand or the know-how to get it done. So we were very, very fortunate that CWAG took this on. I mean, they understand the notion that we live in a global village, right? So if I said to each one of you, the same is true for our justice system, right? A young girl who's trafficked in New Jersey can have an influence on a young girl who was trafficked in Nigeria. We have to understand the connectivity because the criminals do. The earlier presentations, you saw that these networks are talking to each other and working across borders. There's organized crime. There needs to be organized justice and criminal justice. We have to look at it that way. The world will do it with us. You can think beyond your particular county, your state, your district. Think about the broader implications of a particular case and look for ways to get involved. And hopefully this is one of them. The other area that we are doing a lot of work in is in the area of cybercrime. Cybercrime is a huge issue because all of these crimes, the whole idea behind transnational crimes is money, to generate money. This is why criminals are in the game. So if you're able to trace, track, seize the money, it goes a long way into shutting this down. And so it's one of the areas that we cover. We bring experts in on cybercrime, and of course it all ties to money laundering. You got to be able to make money obtained illegally look like a legitimate source of income. So again, these are all the member countries. We continue to look for more partners and continue to grow. And so, and these are just some of our sponsors and partners. So why should you join us? The reason why you should join us is very, very simple. I mean, there's an enumerated list of reasons: collaborate, facilitate, exchange information. But the reason why you should be a part of what we do, and you should lend your talent and your expertise to this partnership, is very, very simple. All of us who is currently a prosecutor or is a former prosecutor, the reason why you do your work is for the protection of the victim. And this is what this is about. This is about helping the least among us. And so it cuts to the very fabric of the call of being a prosecutor. And I believe it is a call. All of you could be making a lot more money doing something else. And the fact that you are engaging in prosecution and you are serving as a counterbalance in a system that is often imperfect. You're doing it as a person of color is just tremendous, and I applaud all of you. I applaud all of you. Before I sit down, I want you to just give you a short video, because I think that we can talk about this, but to illustrate it a little bit, just give you a glimpse of some of the stuff that we're doing and to recap it will be helpful. So, in the immortal words of Warner Wolf, let's go to the videotape. And for those of you who don't know who Warner Wolf is, Google it.
The African continent is witnessing a significant transformation of various justice systems currently ongoing in 8 countries. This is on the account of the numerous programs organized by the Attorney General Alliance Africa Alliance Partnership, AGA-AAP, formerly known as CWAG AAP.
I think there is this notion that somehow the criminal justice system is about catching bad guys. It's a part of it. But our system of justice has to be about bringing justice to the victim. How do we help the least among us? How do we bring a voice to the voiceless?
We have been working very hard from day one to bring the reality of transnational law enforcement cooperation to life through American state attorneys general working with our cohorts in Africa. Building the CWAG AAP partnership programming from the US side has really been a job of going out to the state attorneys general's offices and informing them about the work that we've been doing in Africa.
When they come and when they see the impact that they're making, their response has been just tremendous. They understand the good that they're doing and the need for the training.
Our journey thus far has seen us engage with multiple gifted law practitioners representing various AG's offices across the United States. These noble facilitators sit at the core of our outreach operations as they embody the true essence of AGA-AAP's existence, that of sharing knowledge and experiences to improve the lives of adversely affected and highly underserved victims through engagements with fellow African law practitioners.
Thanks to CWAG and the African Alliance Partnership, we had this opportunity to share knowledge and at the same time trying to help each other and trying to help the world be a better place. So thank you very much.
This being an African affair, the program continues to reach out to more African American law practitioners to actively engage with fellow law practitioners from the motherland.
We've been just so fortunate to work with some of the best judges and police commissioners and prosecutors, directors of public prosecution, attorneys generals, ministers of justice. We've been received with open arms everywhere that we've gone. Every team of facilitators from every local, state and local law enforcement agency and federal law enforcement agency in the United States that we've sent over has come back telling us what an outstanding reception they received upon arriving in the country that they want to teach in. We have had nothing but fantastic reports and very satisfied facilitators who have gone to work with our teams in Africa.
Over the past 2 years, the AGA African Alliance Partnership, in collaboration with its partners and stakeholders, has successfully organized 46 workshops and symposiums, which have built the capacities of up to 2,800 law enforcement personnel in 8 African countries.
CWAG has been awesome, when it comes to facilitating trainings on human trafficking. They're doing a great job. It was really, really enlightening because most of the judges, prosecutors, lawyers did not really understand this human trafficking. It's a specialized area. And so that training really opened the eyes of so many of them. And we hope to have more of that, working with CWAG for more trainings and conferences like that in the future.
AGA-AAP has also signed 10 memorandums of understanding with various stakeholders. This has enabled the rollout of much-awaited interventions in the fight against trans-border criminal activities. Most notable was a recent donation to the Malawi Department of National Parks and Wildlife on the 17th of May 2019, courtesy of the collaborative efforts of the Wildlife Investigators Training Alliance and AGA AAP. During 2017, AGA AAP facilitated internship opportunities for 2 law university students from Kenya.
Hi, my name is Kifaya Abdulkadir Ibrahim.
My name is Henry. I volunteered to go because it's in the area I was interested in. My experience in the US was fantastic. It's one of the most career-defining experiences I've had so far.
Once I complete my advocacy training program, then I should really get my career to assisting people whose human rights are being infringed with, and I think that CWAG AAP will be instrumental in fueling that maybe.
Africa is rising, now more than ever, and AGA AAP continues to reach out to the people of our motherland. In that spirit, we continue to encourage more African American law practitioners to grace us with their presence and actively engage with us, as it is indeed our duty and native calling to support and inspire our people from our motherland. We wish to extend our gratitude to all our partners, facilitators, and donors. Special mention goes to all the participating offices of attorneys general and facilitators in the US. Thank you for your support and great work. Join the Attorney General Alliance Africa Alliance Partnership today, and together, let us bring it home. If you would like to find out more about the AGA AAP program, we'd love to hear from you. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow our social media platforms on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also check out our website today on www.agaaap.org and contact us on info@agaaap.org for more information.
So again, thank all of you, and remember, the world is bigger than Greene County, Georgia.
Thank you very much for a very clear outlining of the journey, the opportunity to be a part of the journey, and I think that's been shared quite clearly this afternoon as we begin to move towards the end of our program. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like now to move on to a presentation titled CWAG AAP's Work in Africa and how it ties to the NBPA work. So we're coming even closer to this partnership and what benefits can come out of this collaboration. And speaking to this theme, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome the Attorney General of Washington, D.C., Mr. Carl Racine, who was sworn in as the District of Columbia's first elected Attorney General in 2015. We know that he was re-elected to a second term in 2018. Attorney General Racine is honored to serve again and will use the next 4 years to expand work on priorities, including preserving affordable housing, employing evidence-based juvenile justice reforms, cracking down on slumlords, holding unscrupulous employers accountable for wage theft, and protecting consumers from scams and abusive business practices. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just scratching the surface. May you please help me welcome the Attorney General of DC.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay, what a terrific presentation by my great friend and truly an inspirational leader, Marcus Green. Do you agree with me? I think Marcus asked at the outset how many folks here have had the opportunity to travel to Africa, and I saw some hands. Can I look at those hands again? How many of you, okay. Now, I'm supposed to advance the ball and have folks really wanting to participate in this initiative further, but I think Marcus scored a touchdown or a slam dunk or a goal, whatever your favorite sport is. I think he really did score points there. How many of you who have not been to Africa are willing to go on a professional endeavor? Okay. I think the conference is over. So is my friend Sherry Boston in the room? I know she's been busy. She, of course, is the DeKalb County prosecutor and also the conference co-chair. Sherry and I are extremely close friends, and that's why I'm okay with her calling me Uncle Carl. And she says I'm just a little bit crazy, so I'm going to go off script. I'm going to go off script because we've heard so much powerful things about the Alliance partnership, and CWAG, and the National Black Prosecutors Association. We really do have an opportunity, I think, just for a little commercial. And the commercial I'll focus on is State Attorney General business in the United States. And I really want to bring my colleague up here, Tish James, who is the Attorney General from the great state of New York. Tish, would you come on up for a moment? I want to bring Tish up, and she and I can talk for just a little bit about some AG work, and then I'll get right back to the Alliance's business. I'm going to actually ask some of the Alliance team members who work in country in Africa to come up after Tish and I finish, and then we'll close. Tish, I guess we have a microphone over there. Perfect. Just sit down. Okay. So we'll have a good conversation here. Let me just say, first of all, Tish James is the first woman elected to be the Attorney General in the state of New York. She is also the first African American to be elected to the Attorney General in New York. You know, sometimes issues matter, and let's be honest, sometimes they don't. You kind of get a little bit of the same. But I'm here to tell you that as an observer in the AG room, been in the room just about 5 years, I have never seen a new Attorney General hit the ground running as Attorney General James has. Let me give you an example. In the United States, a lot of things are happening, as we know. I don't want to be overly political, but obviously there's hatred, there's racism, bigotry, xenophobia, fear, gets practiced every day. Tweets. Oh. Outrageous. And so this calls on state attorney generals to step up. Most recently, New York Attorney General James led an effort, nearly 24 other attorney generals like me joined. And what did she do? Went right to the Supreme Court and won a case before the Supreme Court, 5-4 decision, saying, no, you cannot put the citizenship question on the census form. So I want to just take this moment in time to ask Tish about the last 6 months as being Attorney General, and what's next for you as AG?
It's an honor and a privilege to be before all of you. I've been running in and out today because I've been responding to a couple of things that's happening in our nation. One, the Department of Justice just decided not to prosecute a police officer related to the murder of Eric Garner. As most of you you know, as the former public advocate of the city of New York, I was in the forefront of demanding body cameras in the city of New York. We now have body cameras in the city. Two, I went to court to demand that the grand jury minutes be released. We were unsuccessful in that, but nonetheless, in New York, I've led the way with respect to criminal justice reform, and so a number of reporters wanted to ask me with respect to my position on the decision today. And two, we led an effort of a number of attorney generals across this nation to defend the Affordable Care Act, and that is really critically important in this nation at a time when a significant number of individuals are suffering from pre-existing conditions, and individuals are concerned about the amount of pharmaceutical drugs costing here in this country. And then lastly, as most of you know, filed the most extensive lawsuit in this nation against opioid manufacturers and distributors and those individuals who are responsible for the opioid crisis in our nation. The Office of Attorney General, we're really not a prosecutor. 80% of what we do is civil in nature. I'm the Chief Law Enforcement Officer for the state of New York. We do have an OCTF unit, which is the Organized Crime Task Force unit, which focuses on primarily prosecuting individuals who engage in drug trafficking in the state of New York. So it's primarily civil and defending the state of New York, but it's also criminal to some extent. I am a former public defender and a former city council member representing Brooklyn. One person from Brooklyn. And I'm a former public advocate of the city of New York, which is second to the mayor. But then I was running for mayor for the city, but then decided to run for the attorney general, given a crisis that happened to the former attorney general, who had to ultimately step down. And so here I am, made history being the first woman of color elected statewide, first woman of color citywide, but that really means nothing. Titles mean nothing to me. For me, it's really about where you stand at a time of crisis, and whether or not you will continue to speak truth to power. I consider myself more activist than an elected official, and I continue to stand up on behalf of vulnerable and marginalized populations. And lastly, but not leastly, we received a report from New York that the number of raids that are happening in New York have increased recently, particularly in upstate New York. We are coordinating with a number of states in this room with respect to protecting immigrants who are fleeing persecution and violence, and unfortunately are being detained in these detention centers, which we are about to argue is in violation of the law. And so it's really all about staying woke, standing up, speaking truth to power, and being conscious. And that's really who I am, just a young lady from Brooklyn who continues to do the right thing because God has given me a lot, and much is expected of me and you.
You all understand why I had to have this commercial?
Yes.
Okay, because look, we have great leaders in the room, excellent, obviously, public servants. It's time to celebrate ourselves, and when we see someone who really is having a tremendous impact, not only in her state, but also nationally. And I know that she understands the world is grand, and there's a place for her to play in that world. It would have been really, really a shame for me to not bring Attorney General James on the stage. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right. Let me just diverge again and just let all of you criminal prosecutors know how much I appreciate the hard work that you do. I also appreciate that some of the work that you do is never ever properly congratulated or recognized, particularly if you seek to do your job a bit differently or dare to be a reformist in some way. There are forces that are against that. And I note my regret for not being able to observe the panel discussion yesterday, where we had extraordinarily strong women prosecutors who are oftentimes under the gun for any decision that they make that may not be consistent with how folks have always seen it. And I just want to say, and Mark Dupree, a great friend from Kansas, knows this. When times get rough, it's incredibly important for us to be supportive of each other, maximally so, because the forces that don't want any change really love it when they see us walk away from each other, and they can then isolate on their targets. So there are very many prosecutors that merit the benefit of the doubt and your support when shit hits the fan. Okay? So I urge you to do that. Now back to CWAG in the Alliance Partnership. Let me invite the CWAG Africa team to just come on board. You've seen some of the pictures and whatnot. Ladies, please come on up. And the reason why I wanted to ask these young ladies to come up just for a moment is to let you know that all that Marcus, presented so well, that doesn't just happen accidentally. It occurs with a lot of planning, a lot of focus, a lot of hard work on the ground, and a lot of commitment and passion around the ultimate objective, which is to partner with the great, great continent of Africa and its 52 countries. So what I'm going to do is just ask you to introduce yourself. Let us know principally where you are in your work in Africa and what it is you focus on.
Hello. Hi. My name is Caroline Babazi. I'm the CWAG representative for Uganda and Rwanda. We have so far been able to form really valuable relationships across the public sector, both in Uganda and Rwanda. We collaborate currently with the Office of the Attorneys, both Attorneys General from Rwanda and Uganda, and with the DPP's office. We also work with the police and intelligence, and with the different bar associations to put on trainings and have symposiums almost similar to this event. And, yeah, we've so far had multiple guests and trainers from CWAG, and they work along with their local partners that we source that are currently part of our team. And yeah, we put on the best trainings, and we hope you can join us on this course. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
I'm Kim Robinson, New Yorker by birth, probably South African by marriage. I'm based in Johannesburg, and I'm the country coordinator for South Africa. Our primary relationship is with the Ministry of Justice and also the National Prosecuting Authority. We started our program in December 2016, and just next week, I'll be back in Johannesburg working with the Eastern and Southern African Anti-Money Laundering Group.
My name is Bella Chukwu Venega, still from Nigeria, proudly Nigerian. And I would be fraudulent to stand and not recognize the team that I work with in Nigeria in putting together the CWAG work in Nigeria. I work with Chief Anthony Dipe, who is our principal coordinator, who is not supposed to be here, but otherwise held up. I have a team of lawyers working with me. Tobina, I have Lucy, I have Maiwa, all young people committed to this course. And in the course of since 2016, December, precisely to now, we have been able to work with CWAG to partner in doing a lot of law reforms. Nigeria right now, we have Since 2015, we have had administration of criminal justice, a revamping of our administration of criminal justice system, and a lot of states are keen into this, which requires a lot of training for the lawyers, a lot of training for the prosecutors, a lot of training for the judges. And CWAG has really come to bear in training their weight behind training these lawyers. We have had attorney generals come all the way. We have had prosecutors come all the way just to be able to share information. And then even in the area of human trafficking, we have done a lot of work in active. And the most impactful is the training we had for judges in Ogun State, made up of over 350 participants, all the lawyers in Ogun State and all the NBPA, over 350, and they didn't know much about human trafficking. They didn't know much. It was so well received. So we have worked with them in doing that. And then it's not just in the area of criminal justice. We have done a lot of work even in financial services. One very impactful work we have done in the area of law reforms was when we had to have a training on credit reporting. Oh, we had this very piece of legislation on credit reporting which is supposed to help our financial services sector, but nobody knew about it. Nobody knew they can actually get a credit report. In fact, we had in the room lawyers, literates, as in we're not having market women in the hall, and we asked who here has a credit report, and nobody in the room knew that they were entitled to credit reports in a year. So it's not just area of law reforms. We have even gone into financial sector in Nigeria, and I can tell you that the reforms we are having in those areas are very tremendous. Thank you so much, Siwa.
Good afternoon. I am Gift Chikwakwa from Malawi, the warm heart of Africa. Malawi joined the Africa Alliance Partnership in 2017 towards the end of the year, and has since then done several workshops and symposiums and various training, working with the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Homeland Security, and we've signed MOUs with those two. We recently signed an MOU with the Malawi Law Society, which is really a big base in terms of membership, and we are excited that we'll be able to pull a lot from that database, from that base. We'll be able to do a lot of work with them. They're both corporate and government, but obviously we know that we'll be able to actually influence that. We also of late have done extremely good work with the Financial Intelligence Agency that have taken the advantage of using CWAG to try and plug in their weaknesses that they picked up on their risk assessment reporting. We've also done work with the Anti-Corruption Bureau, and we've got a few others coming up. Very grateful to be a part of this lovely alliance. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Frida Mwamba Brassel. I am standing on the west of Gift, where Zambia is landlocked and is on the west of Malawi. So it's very appropriate that we're standing this way. If you remember in Black Panther, remember that waterfall scene where they're fighting? That mimics the Victoria Falls, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world. So it's another reason for you to come and join our journey. Our journey in Zambia began with CWAG in July of 2017. And over the past 2.5 years, we've had 9 training sessions. We've trained over 400 law enforcement agents. And next month, we will be training on trade-based anti-money laundering, as well as anti-wildlife trafficking. For me personally, the whole relationship with CWAG, and thank you to Marcus and to Karen and to Susan and to John for making this happen, as well as the support of all the sponsors, is the actual impact that we have on the mindset change of the people in Zambia, because we do the training sessions, but we also get them televised, we are in the media. So the whole awareness of being able to identify human trafficking is something that is a conduit through this program. I look forward to working with several of you. We will, at the end of August, have trained close to 530, and we have signed 3 MOUs with the Attorney General's Office, with the Law Association of Zambia, as well as with the National Prosecution Authority, and we will be signing 2 other MOUs with the Financial Intelligence Center, as well as with Zambia Police. So thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Florence Hagan. Everybody calls me Mommy. And I'm from Ghana. And Ghana is the latest country to join the CWAG family. In that time, we have held a conference and workshop with the Food and Drugs Authority on counterfeit drugs, and CWAG was instrumental in helping the FDA and its stakeholders formulate a policy to be able to handle any threats of counterfeit drugs. At that time, there's a drug called Tramadol, which I believe has the composition of morphine. It's used for in surgeries for pain relief. But what was happening was that the youth were now using it to study. Long-distance drivers were using it to keep awake, and it was basically being abused. So it was imperative that the FDA and its stakeholders came up with a policy to combat this. And CWAG came in at the right time, and they were instrumental in getting a policy formulated, which I believe henceforth will be used to combat any menace of this nature. Thereafter, we have held a workshop with the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police on cyber crime, and also training prosecutors and investigators to identify and treat digital information and digital evidence, and how they can use it, and basically honing their skills on investigation. We are expecting to sign an MOU with the Judicial Training Institute of Ghana, and we have also been speaking to the Ghana Bar Association, hopefully to collaborate with them to be able to support them at their bar conference. And that's just the beginning. And again, I welcome you to Ghana, and I know that you will have a great time. Thank you.
And the man is last. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chuks Nambapara. I'm the country coordinator for Kenya. In Kenya, we do a couple of things. Apart from representing CWAG AAP, we also have a little program office where we try to coordinate the programs that are happening in every country. This would definitely not be possible without a team then, and we have Lillian here. Lillian, are you here?
Lillian!
Without her, a lot of things wouldn't be possible, I can tell you that. So, anyway, we kicked off the program in Kenya in 2017. We started with a conference on human trafficking with the Office of the Attorney General. We had Carl Racine in attendance. Thank you very much for that support, Carl. That was wonderful. We also had the Attorney General of Illinois, Lisa Madigan, at the time. Since then, we've continued working with the Attorney General's office. We worked with the on counterfeit drugs, with the Pharmaceutical Board, and also a multi-task team under the Attorney General's office, where we talked about cybercrime and anti-money laundering. Since then, let me move right on. We've also reached out to the Director of Public Prosecutions, so we're going to be working with them going forward in November and December. We've also been embraced by the judiciary of Kenya through the Judicial Training Institute, and we'll be running programs in late September and in November this year. Cybercrime, anti-money laundering, and the program will continue for the next 2 years. We signed an MOU with them. So I'll leave it there, and thank you very much for your support, and I hope to see you guys next year.
Thank you very much for coming up. And you can just go back to your seats, and I'll close by committing. How many of my prosecutor colleagues are here from DC? 3? 4 in the house. Everybody stand up. Okay, there's 4, and all 4 of them will be going. To the conference. Absolutely. To share knowledge. I really want to emphasize a point here that was made by Marcus, I think, and some of the other speakers. The facilitating of knowledge sharing is really what's most important. And I can tell you that after the Chuck's mentioned the 2017 human trafficking conference in Kenya that I attended, I guarantee you I learned far more than I imparted. And what we learned specifically were new ways to think about going after and punishing the demand side, which was really, really necessary in the District of Columbia. The last thing I'll leave you with is those 2 spectacular lawyers who are on the video. That was Kafaya and Ivy. They were interns at the Office of Attorney General. They came in as lawyers who just completed law school. They worked for us for about 5 months. They did an extraordinary job. They wrote legal memos. They argued motions. We got a special dispensation from the court to allow them to present argument. They did that. And they left our office, I think, a better place than it was before they got there. In fact, I remember sitting with them and asking before they left, what were the 2 biggest impressions they had, apart from just the nature of the work? And what they said to me was interesting. I don't think any of our colleagues would have said this in DC. He said, number 1, my God, Carl, you guys waste so much paper. And it's true. We are so well resourced, even sometimes in our under-resourced offices, that we tend to take these things for granted. And they were stunned at the amount of paper that was wasted. Then I said, what else? I got to tell you, some folks, you'll know this, my colleagues, a lot of folks in our office understandably complain sometimes that the workspace is too tight. They don't have a window, or this or that, which I get. My 2 Kenyan colleagues said, this office is huge. So little things that we take for granted, others, aren't so fortunate. And being reminded sometimes of that is a blessing also. With that, I want to say thank you very much for your attention, and certainly look forward to the continued program.
A very big thank you to Attorney General Racina for taking some ad breaks, having a mini moderated conversation, and of course showcasing the work of CWAG and the people behind that work. Very much appreciative, so thank you very much. And also at this moment, we would just like to acknowledge that the former Attorney General of Georgia, Mr. Thurber Baker, has also joined us. Welcome, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, the next panel is going to be very brief because the purpose of the panel was to do 2 things. One was to showcase the work of CWAG, and the second was to begin to showcase the possibilities out of the CWAG and NBPA partnership. And I think we're going to lean now more towards what the partnership can yield given the time that you've spent just highlighting the work of CWAG. So to help us do that, I'd like to welcome the lady whose name is on the screen. That's Susan Lustig. She manages the CWAG AAP and builds relationships between U.S. and Mexican Attorney General's offices. And she provides training programs in support of criminal justice system reforms and rule of law efforts in Mexico. So there's much to be learned about what has been achieved in Mexico and how that might be replicated on the African continent. Susan, thank you for joining us. We can give her a round of applause. Kim Robinson, I'm going to ask you to come back onto stage. Kim, who said when she introduced herself, was that she's from New York, but by marriage South African. So we claim her as ours. We say she's South African first now. And she leads Renaissance Strategic Solutions, Johannesburg-based consulting firm. She's the country rep there. And she is a Harvard-educated attorney, a Fulbright scholar, and a certified ethics officer with the Ethics Institute of South Africa. Mr. John Edozi, he hasn't been on stage, I think, today, so very glad to have you on stage, sir. Mr. Edozi serves as the international advisor to the CWAG Africa Alliance Partnership. We saw him on some of the videos, and he served as legal counsel for various clients in Nigeria who have had business interest in the US. And yes, let's put a round of applause. And welcoming back on stage a familiar face to all of us and who helped open the proceedings this morning, Mr. Keith Lamar. I'm not going to introduce him again, only to say that the NBPA is perhaps becoming the only professional membership organization that is as dedicated to the advancement of Black prosecutors. So welcome again, sir. Thank you. So I'm going to get right into it, and maybe, John, I'm going to start off with you as we begin to really now focus on the partnership, and maybe ask you just to speak to the size of the need for volunteers. When we talk about, we spent quite a little bit of time now really almost in a recruitment drive mode. Talk to us about the size of the need and the kind of skills and capability and capacity we're hoping to build through this partnership.
Thank you very much for the question. To understand what we're doing on the continent, as we've heard, we're teaching, we're training judges, prosecutors, and investigators. We're training in areas of cybercrime, human trafficking, anti-wildlife trafficking, corruption, asset forfeiture, doing some domestic violence, and experts. The heart and the soul of what we're trying to do requires expertise. And we have a room full of prosecutors. And we also have, I know, some judges. And we have retired judges who are prosecutors. And so we're looking for people who have that experience to share, to essentially inform. And when we go to some of these countries, we sit down with other prosecutors there and sit there. This is what we do. Is it something that you require, you need? And if the answer is yes, what specific areas? And they tell us it might be, as someone has said before, asset forfeiture. We get bad guys, we get criminals. And how do we, we have laws here, but we're having some challenges in capacity issues. So we need some training. So we now reach out to our people here, and thanks to the great work that Susan does, Susan reached out, and we're lucky enough to get these volunteers, but it's never enough, because there's a need, there's a want. And so we're looking for people who are willing to come out, and as Marcus said, volunteer, give back, share the information that you required over the years. And a lot of us, we all do training too. We do our own training. We take some of that training we get here and share it with others. The laws keep changing, but they're essentially, the the same thing. We know, there are ways of doing things. So we really need, people who have some experience, who have knowledge, and it could be even basic trial advocacy. Prosecutors who stand in the courtroom. A lot of the countries we are in are, common law systems. So they may not have a jury, but you have a prosecutor and a defense. But you know that, a lot of lawyers, they don't have trial experience, or they don't, people think lawyers can talk, but we all know a lot of lawyers don't like to talk. And so we need lawyers, prosecutors who do this for a living, who come in and teach trial advocacy and teach the skills that good lawyers need. So, essentially that's what we're looking to get from this. And it's very promising.
It's a done deal then. So, Kim, let me come to you. I mean, earlier you shared a little bit about the kind of work that you do as a country coordinator. You spoke about workshops, trainings, symposiums. You spoke about working in South Africa, but also in the Southern Africa region broadly. And I guess the question becomes, what would a partnership like this enable you to do from a increasing depth of the work that you're doing and the breadth of the work that you're doing? And again, keeping in mind that CWAG is currently in 8 countries in a continent that has an opportunity of 54 countries.
Right. Now, so we're talking about the need. We're in 8 countries because we have the capacity to be in 8 countries. We don't have the capacity to be in 54 countries. And your participation is indeed needed because the need on the continent is broader than those 8 countries. So as a country coordinator, I'm the person on the ground who establishes the relationships and initiates the relationships with the key stakeholders. I know who those key stakeholders are, and I know the individuals within them who make the decisions. And so therefore, I'm able to say, okay, this is who we are. Let us talk. Let us develop a relationship to see how we can be of service. So once you're on the ground and you know folks, you're able to begin the work. Once you deliver on the work, there's credibility, and we have credibility. People are benefiting from what we provide, and therefore they call you back. So not only from South Africa, I'm able to have a relationship directly with South African institutions, such as the Ministry of Justice, the National Prosecuting Authority. Also from that base, I'm able to engage in multi-country organizations on the continent, such as the African Prosecutors Association, the Southern African Development Community Lawyers Association, and also the Eastern and Southern African Anti-Money Laundering Group. So these groups are comprised of several countries. So we're able to, so for example, the training that we're going to have next week is not only going to have delegates from South Africa, but delegates throughout the Southern African region and throughout East Africa. So in terms of depth and breadth, it's about the relationships. And someone has to be on the ground who understands what are the nuances, what are the dynamics, who can Susan call, who can John call, who's accountable to them to make sure that we're able to deliver on the mandate.
So Susan, let's bring you into the conversation very quickly because you've been working primarily with Mexico and the Attorney General's office in Mexico and making the linkages with the US from there. And it's quite interesting to have you on this panel because I think you bring a unique perspective of being able to lift some of the lessons that come out of the 10-year journey with Mexico and to say, what have we learned that we could apply through the lens of partnership into the African context? Could you share some of those insights?
We've been really fortunate to have been able to work in Mexico for the last more than a decade now, 12 years, and to have taken people from 42 different U.S. Attorneys General's offices and have them work with us in Mexico, in the 32 states, and the Federal Attorney General's office in Mexico, and the Military Justice Attorney General's office in Mexico. Every jurisdiction in Mexico has let us in. And we've had the same kind of reception in Africa through our country representatives. We've been received with open arms, everybody, everywhere we've gone in Africa. And every facilitator that we have taken into Africa has come back, and not only have they just loved the country coordinators, they've loved the reception that they've had at all the agencies in Africa. They have, they've just been received so warmly. And teaching isn't about imparting information. Teaching is about sharing, and it's about exchanging information, and it's about learning. When you go to teach something, you learn as much as you teach. Teaching is an opportunity to continue to learn every day. So when you go, John, you said we need subject matter experts, and I can hear people in the audience thinking, I'm not an expert. I just go to work and I just do my job. I'm not an expert. Yes, you are an expert. Every single one of you, you know how to do your job. You have something that you know how to do, and you have information that you can share and learn with your counterparts in the ministries of justice and the prosecutors' offices in Africa, and they need you to come to them, to sit down with them and help share what you know how to do and help them learn some of the techniques and the tips and the tricks and the things that you've learned through hard-won experience. Let's help them learn from your mistakes. Let them learn to make their own mistakes and not repeat the mistakes we've already made. Learn to make different mistakes. And that's what we've been doing in Mexico for the last dozen years, and it's worked really well there. And the model that we've been working with in Mexico has been pretty successful there. In terms of the relationships that we've been able to build and sustain with our Attorney General colleagues there, and what we've seen in the last 3 years in Africa has been leading us to believe that that we're on the right track there from our friends who have joined us today and who were able to join us at our annual meeting last month in California. It looks like we're building a strong foundation to move forward into the future, and we'd like all of you to join us.
So thank you for demystifying experts, because I think perhaps a lot of people might have been sitting with that to say, what qualifies as an expert, and just to say, well, the likelihood is all of us sitting in this room have something to share and something to learn from it. The likelihood that all of us in this room might have made a mistake before that is worth sharing so that even more people can learn from it. So there's a certain degree of authenticity that you're also bringing through in that response, which I appreciate. So let's come to the MOU that's going to be signed very shortly, Mr. Lamar. And maybe the question to you then is, what is the significance of the signing beyond the symbolism of the organizations saying they care about the same thing, they care about the victims, as Marcus Reed pointed out to us earlier. What is the significance of this moment today?
First of all, thank you. I'm just honored to be up here with you all. As president of the National Black Prosecutors Association, when I first heard about it, it's a no-brainer. Our whole purpose of our organization is to cultivate more prosecutors, more leaders, more attorneys, and we would be just ridiculous not to do it. I think that what y'all doing is great. I've been inspired by every single presentation today. And as soon as you came to me, I was like, yes, we're gonna do this immediately. And the reason we're gonna do it is more than just signing the paper. We're actually gonna go out there on the ground, we're gonna put words into action, and that action is gonna turn into something great. So we gotta believe that, and the first thing we gotta do first is believe in ourselves and know that we gotta link up. So I'm so happy to link up with you all. I can't wait to take my first trip to Africa. I wanna go all over the place. And besides that, we're gonna do some great things with you. We have a lot of experts out there, a lot of modest people as well, but I love everybody here, and I know that all the classes that we're doing this week, I hope they're educational, and I know that we can keep doing this and get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So let me just come to you briefly again, John, because I think despite the excitement that we're drumming up in this particular moment, there are probably also some real questions that we still need to tackle. And one of those questions really might be the sustainability of the relationships. Because if one looks at, whether you're looking at the news headlines or you're reading the newspapers, one often sees how relationships can be severed through election cycles. When one administration goes, do we have to start the work all over again? What has been your experience on the ground working on a continent where elections do matter? And how have you ensured that the relationships that you're building can be sustained over time?
Thanks for the question. Well, what we've tried to do is when we sign MOUs or when we work with particular departments like the DPP's office of the Ministry of Justice, we are working with institutions and not individuals. So a lot of the ministries, old school, you go in there, you sign an agreement with them, and then you work with the bureaucracy. And it takes a lot longer, it takes time. But the good thing about it is they open a file, and then they know who they're working with, and you build a relationship with an institution. So when there's an election, and maybe one party loses, or it's just a change, the ministry reshuffle. You don't have to figure, well, I only know this minister. You know the institution. And so they know you work with the civil servants. And so all they do is we know who these people are. And that's why it's good to have good country coordinators, people who know what's going on ground. We talked a bit about nuances, cultural things. And we don't take the approach that, well, let's go to Africa. Well, Africa is a huge continent, the second largest continent, and it's big. And so we have to deal with people who are on ground, who know what's going on, who tell you this is what we should do, this is what we shouldn't do. And yes, at times, as it's here, when there's an election, they'll say, well, maybe we can't do training because, there's an election. People's minds are not focused on training, they focus on elections. You understand, we get it, and so we wait. But we plan in advance, and so essentially it's institutional framework building. That's what we're trying to do, and that's why we are going to sustain the relationships and be there for a long time.
So it's a systemic engagement, engaging with the institutions at that level. Kim, I just want to surface a theme that I think has been bubbling under, and I think John has touched on it now, the significance of really understanding the cultural context. Earlier on this morning, we had a beautiful discussion, maybe slightly robust, about bigamy and versus polygamy, and how does that look like, and I think there were people with different views about how that should play out. But again, what it did is that it surfaced the importance of understanding the cultural context. So I want to come back to you, Kim, on that. As a country coordinator on the ground, what does this require of you in terms of understanding the local nuance and the context of where you're coordinating?
Yeah, in the 21st century, I think many people think that if you just read the newspaper, you just follow social media, well, then I can understand that place. But there are those intangibles that you simply cannot understand just by following traditional or social media. You've just gotta be there, and you've gotta be there with your eyes open and your mind open, and truly be analytical. So, for example, there might be certain topics that someone might want to cover in a training. In one African country, that might be perfectly fine, but in another country, that might be politically insensitive and not astute. So, and that's just not something you're going to know just randomly. You're only going to know that by speaking to someone in that country and saying, what subject should we handle? Why are they keeping away from certain subjects? What people should we get in the room? What people should we not have in the room? Those are subtleties and nuances that you only get from being present. And can I just add another reason why I think, John eloquently mentioned the need for talent, that our talent comes from volunteers. I'm gonna put a point on, well, why do we need Black talent? We need Black talent because your heart and soul is who you are. And I think our teams should be representative of the US. And when our teams are not representative of the US, we're suspect. So that's a reason. For example, I had a white South African prosecutor say, why is your team all black? Oh, sorry, all white. I thought that was a great question. So people are looking to see. Another issue is, okay, what are your individual experiences? So for example, maybe as prosecutors, you had to deal with the issue of racial difference when you're dealing with your investigator or the police. Well, that's an issue that would be relevant in a country like South Africa, for example. The theme of the conference, empower, encourage, engage. Well, this is a way to live. Empower, encourage, and engage. Human trafficking, as many of us are descendants of slaves, if this is modern day slavery, maybe we have a special empathy to bring when we train in that area.
Okay, so again, speaking and touching on the issue of why us and why this challenge is at our feet in this particular a moment. I'm going to come to you, Susan, and then I'm going to end off with Keith. And Susan, I mean, the question I asked you earlier for you was really just for you to share some of the insights over the decade or more that you have been working within the Mexico lens. Would you have some lessons learned from what makes for successful partnerships?
I don't think matters. I can't follow Kim. She just said it all for us. What makes a successful partnership is all of us working together. It's all of us working as a team. And we at CWAG, all of us from the Attorney General community, from our private sector partners, from our team in Africa, from all of our country partners, from NAPTIP and the Director of Public Prosecution in Zambia, from the Malawi Department of Parks and Wildlife, from all of the different groups that have come together to promote these projects and to really pull together and move forward together. These are the groups that have made the successes that we've built in this short time that we've been working together. And these are the groups that are going to, these are the groups that are pushing at our back as all of you are pulling us forward. Together, we're all going to move forward.
And just practically, Susan, the details on the screens, this is all you have to do is just drop Susan an email. I think your number is on the screen as well.
It is, and I would like to just say we are able with our funding for our program, we're able to cover all of your travel expenses when you're able to come with us on one of these programs. We'll cover all of your travel medicine. You get a free yellow fever shot. Lasts for 10 years. All you just shoot me an email or a text or WhatsApp, whatever. I'll put you on our mailing list and keep you apprised of opportunities as they come up. For example, if any of you is an expert or even mildly interested in trade-based money laundering, we have a course coming up in Zambia in the second week of August, August 12th, the week of August 12th. We're going to have 100 people from all throughout the Zambian financial sector, the Financial Intelligence Center, which is like their FinCEN, from their national police, all the investigative agencies, all of their money regulating agencies, and their private sector, their banks, all of their financial sector wants to come together and learn about trade-based money laundering. So we've got this amazing group coming together on the Zambian side, and we have some amazing talent on the U.S. regulatory side, but we have a couple of spots open if anybody is or knows anyone who would like to come and help out with the, on the facilitator side, we have a couple of spots. So please, there's my information, and you can come and hunt me down. I'll be here today for the rest of the day and tomorrow morning. Please just let me know. We'd love to have you come with us. Again, free yellow fever shot. Although I don't think it's necessary for Zambia.
So final question, and the final question I'll bring to you, Keith, and that is of being at the luncheon yesterday and exposed to some of the amazing work that the NBPA is doing. Today I had the opportunity to immerse myself in the work that CWAG and CWAG AAP as a collective is doing. And what appears to be clear is that both organizations are doing incredible work in their respective spaces. And I guess the question is, together, what superpower arises out of this? What does it enable us to do that we can't do separately, but together we can definitely do?
Well, you know, when you come together, you can take down giants, you can change the world. One of the quotes that I said earlier in the week, you know, one of us shine, a couple of us will see it, you know, maybe. But when all of us are doing things together, everybody can see it. When all of us shine, we come through like the sun, heal the whole planet. We got to make sure that we come through and actually do what we said we're going to do. Take action and enjoy it at the same time, because this should be fun work. You're trying to make the earth better. That's fun. All right? We all have a future. Make the future better than when you came into it. So when we get together, we can be a superpower. I think all the information that we have, all different people from California to Georgia to Asia, the Indians, and everywhere, we need to make sure that we're working on making a better planet for our kids, a better planet for ourselves. At the end of the day, let's be happy and love one another.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we give them a round of applause? Thank you. So Keith, I'm going to ask you to stay on stage, and I'm going to invite the rest of our panelists to kindly please take their seats. And the reason why I'm going to ask Mr. Keith Lamar to stay on stage is because we're now transitioning to a very special part of our program, and that is the MOU signing ceremony. And I'm going to ask Mr. Keith Lamar as well as Madam Karen White to come back up to the podium. They're going to make some short remarks for us on the significance of the signing of this MOU, after which, ladies and gentlemen, they will make their way to the table that's been set up where the MOU is sitting and waiting for them to appendage their signatures to it. So let me move out of the way and give them an opportunity to share their remarks, and I will direct you to the table when we're done. Thank you so much.
I think the significance of this day is that we can all look at each other and see the people who are really pushing for change, not only in our own country, but on the continent of Africa. So I thank all of you for everything you're doing every day, and I thank our team members for everything they're doing on behalf of our counterparts in Africa. And on behalf of the Conference of Western Attorneys General and the 42 states in the AG Alliance, if we can help you further your work in the U.S., we're here for you to do that as well. But we think if this interests you, we would love to hear from you and partner with you as well.
I want to thank the board members of the Conference of Western Attorney Generals, the representatives of CWAG, AAP, and NBPA members. To our former Attorney General, Mr. Thurber Baker, thank you. And to all other officials present, it gives me immense pleasure to speak with you all about this agreement between the NBPA and the CWAG AAP. We're going to get into a formal partnership. Formal. Of course, we've been partners all year. We've worked together all year, a lot of collaborative efforts, but I want this to be official. We would like to cement our partnership with our memorandum of understanding. And with this MOU, I hope that our relationship will deepen. We will learn one another's customs, learn one another's likes and dislikes, and become friends through and through. In fact, more than friends, family. The partnership will allow us to explore new ways to extend our expertise in working with all different functions. Our social change, criminal justice reform, we can go through and change the laws. Because laws can be changed. We can change our practices, and we can work on having a fair system for all. Through various presentations today, I think everybody has seen the phenomenal things that we can do. And these were phenomenal presentations. And before I go forward, I'd like to take a moment just to applaud all the people that presented today. It's time for us to change the landscape. And we can do this. It's not that hard. That's how I look at it. Don't go into it thinking about, oh, how hard is this going to be? Go into it thinking about how successful you're going to be. And this is going to be pure success. The experiences that we're going to get this week, and for the rest of the time that we're in this partnership, which is forever. Heard I said that? Forever. It's going to be great experiences. Nothing but positive things to do. Thank you, advisor. Thank you so much. Without you, we're going to be Mr. Marcus, can you stand up? Please. It takes men like him and women like, oh my goodness, stand up for a moment. You took my breath away earlier. Please stand up. If you weren't here earlier to witness, she went through, it was almost better than church. I mean, I had to get up like this is a lot. You hear stuff like that every day, it's going to change the way you think. It's going to change the way you look at the world. You need to hear positive things every day. You need to think positive thoughts. And right now, we're going to have a positive change on our country, Africa, and this whole world. I also hope that this platform brings these two organizations to be more than just an organization, but something that people know they have to be a part of. Something that little kids, college students, law students know that they should be in attendance. Hopefully, even though this might be a big conference this year, we're gonna double it next year and keep doubling, and one day, it's gonna be everywhere. Finally, at the end of the day, I'd like to tell you that this is an honor, and the whole organization is super excited about getting together. At this time, Mr. Thurber Baker, I'd like to bring you up to the stage. Thank you. Said stage, so I make the table over here.
Congratulations once again. Ladies and gentlemen, at this moment, perhaps let's just give them a really big round of applause for them. I'm going to take this opportunity and the energy and the momentum that's been garnered to introduce our final closing remarks and call to action, and our speaker who's going to be producing that for us. It's with a great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, that the former Attorney General of Georgia has joined us this afternoon. Mr. Thurber Baker is going to be doing our call to action and our closing remarks. As we know, Attorney General Baker co-leads Denton's U.S. Attorney General practice. He serves on the U.S. board and also serves on Denton's global board. We know that he served as an Attorney General for the state of Georgia for 13 years. Yes. Under 3 different governors. He's been consistently, and I repeat, consistently selected as one of the 100 most influential Georgians by Georgia Trend magazine and other publications. In 2009, he was the recipient of the first annual Barack Obama Political Leadership Award from the National Bar Association, and this, ladies and gentlemen, for his pioneering achievements as a public servant and as an elected official. Men Looking Ahead magazine recently selected him as its Man of the Year. Attorney General Baker was nationally ranked by Chambers and Partners USA in 2019 as a Band 1 attorney in the area of government relations and state attorneys general. Ladies and gentlemen, again, just the tip of the iceberg. As he makes his way up, allow me also to remind you that the former Attorney General is going to be the final person gracing the podium. And because of this, it's an opportunity for me to repeat Mr. Green's words, except I'll do them in my language. He said, "My cup runneth over." As a way of thanking you for having me, I'd like to say, thank you so much for having me. And when the former Attorney General closes, please be reminded, ladies and gentlemen, that you are welcome to cocktail. I know it's called cocktail hour. I've been told not to put emphasis on hour, it could be hours. And this is taking place at the College Football Hall of Fame. And there's food. And also don't forget, so there's food, and don't forget to sign for your CLEs at the back if you haven't done that already. Right, let's put our hands together for the former Attorney General to come up, please.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
We are in hot Atlanta now. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Listen, it is indeed an honor. I appreciate those kind words of introduction, but as my wife always reminds me, believe on the half of that stuff, right? I'm just telling you. You know, I feel so good being here this afternoon. I feel like I'm back with family. Prosecutors from around the country and really around the globe. I will share this little secret with you since I'm with family today. When I was still in office, some 13 years, you know, I had this little thing that I did. It was called a one day get out of jail free pass. It was for everybody who, my friends and colleagues who got to Atlanta and just had a little bit too much partying going on. And so they would always call me up and say, what about that one day get out of jail free pass, Attorney General? I said, you got it. It was okay until they decided they wanted to transfer it, right? So they gave it to their friends, and they gave it to their cousins, and Cousin Joe and Cousin Johnny. It just got to be out of hand. But after a while, I just decided these things are not going to work. They just won't. Prosecutors have to make sure we're doing what we need to do. It was called not special prosecution, but special non-prosecution. But we enjoyed it while it lasted. Now, the moral of this story is, I don't have the authority to give you a one day get out of jail free pass. I want you to enjoy your stay here in Atlanta. Have a great time. And just remember, you are in the city of Atlanta, I think the home where kings have walked. A place where we still believe the home run king of these United States still lives. Okay? I hope you all had a great visit to my church, Ebenezer Baptist Church, on Sunday, for those of you who couldn't make it. This is the home of civil rights, right? This is where it all began. And this is where much of the activity still consummates itself. And so for those of you who are here enjoying this conference, and I want you to have a great time. Just remember that this is where the serious issues were debated many years ago. And because all of those people who were so committed, people who were willing to give their lives, to put them on the line each and every day, those are the ones whose shoulders we stand on. As Black prosecutors and minority prosecutors from around this country and around the world. We stand on their shoulders because they gave us the opportunity to do what we do today. It is an honor to be here with so many accomplished individuals who know what you're doing and making a true difference in your respective homes. Would you please give yourselves a big round of applause. Now let me do what I was asked to do, right? You know, I can never resist a microphone. So let me do what they told me to come up here to do. First of all, President Lamar, thank you so much. Such a young man with such a big job, you know, leading this organization in an amazing way. Thank you so much for being here in Atlanta. Thank you for what you're doing. My dear friend, Karen White, thank you for coming to Atlanta. I have worked with Karen for so many years, and I was kind of kidding her glad to get her in the city of Atlanta for a change. But Karen, as you know, leads the Attorney General Alliance. And what a wonderful job she does. She's been able to bring attorneys generals together from around this country and doing just some magnificent things, Karen. Thank you so much for your presence here. And quite frankly, I don't know that we would be here on this particular day, but for my good friend and colleague, Marcus. Marcus, stand up again because I want people to know. You know, these things don't just happen by chance. You know, people are working day in and day out, making a difference in the lives of people across this country and around the globe. Marcus, you're one of them. Thank you so much for your presence here. I also want to acknowledge the board members of the Conference of Western Attorneys General, the CWAG Alliance Partnership, and the NBPA. Thank you all so much for being here and for what you're doing. You know, I know you've been welcomed already, but it's a privilege for me to welcome you here to Atlanta, to, I think, witness a very historic moment. You know, we signed the MOU just a few minutes ago. I witnessed it. They did sign the original signature. They didn't do a Joe Blow or whatever. They signed their real names to it. So they are committed to what they're doing here. But I think, you know, this is a historic moment because it allows partnerships to leverage their shared knowledge, to leverage their expertise, to leverage their expansive networks, to quite frankly deal more effectively with increasing and complex international nature of crime. And we see this happening all around the world. Things like human trafficking, wildlife trafficking, to name just a few. You know, like President Lamar remarked, I believe, earlier today, and I agree with this. I hope the platforms that come to life as a result of these two organizations partnering together will really interest more prosecutors and more attorneys here in the United States to do what we hope you would do, to move forward on these initiatives in combating international crime. And not only just here in the United States, where I think the majority of you are from, but really around the globe. I should also congratulate you, Karen, for the great expansion you've done with attorneys general around the country. You know, we started with Karen years ago with the Conference of Western Attorneys General, just a small number of AGs on the West Coast, as we like to say, who were interested in water issues. And then we realized that they had better parties and hung out at better places than we did. So we started getting Karen to sort of connect us, even though we were from Georgia. She would make us a CWAG member as well. And you've done a great job expanding not only CWAG, but I think bringing together attorneys general from around this country. I think it has made a difference. You know, these efforts, I think, cement our core beliefs that, you know, collaboration among states attorneys generals do matter. And I know that matters because as I've watched it over the years, you know, we've seen and believe that at the federal level, the feds were really the change agents if we were going to see massive changes in this country. But we now know that that's not always the case. As our federal government has become slowed down to a snail's crawl in many instances, increasingly bitter political gridlock that we see in and out of Washington, D.C. each and every day. You know, we are looking at hope that we have for a new group of change agents, people who can make a difference. We've seen more of the activism in this country since our 2018 midterms elections. Today, we are with any number of issues, ranging from consumer protection to antitrust issues to fraud issues, financial issues, data privacy issues, business practices, false claims. The list goes on and on and on. All this, we believe, needs to be addressed, and the change agents in this room are the ones we believe can do it. Now, don't let me get too far ahead of you. We made commendable progress. There's no question about that. However, I would like to make a clarion call to each and every one of you this afternoon. A rallying cry, so to speak, because these are the times when men and women of good faith have to step up and to make a difference in what we're doing in this country. And I believe you can make that difference, not just in your individual states, but I believe you can move us along a course that makes a difference. You can expand the frontiers of justice in this country. You can expand the rule of law beyond where we are, not just in the continental U.S., but around this globe. You know, people ask about this partnership and why it is so important. Well, let me just give you one reason. You know, Mr. Lamar observed this morning, I believe, that, you know, in the United States, transactional crimes, you know, things like human trafficking, really compound the stress and the exploitation of marginalized individuals, poor women, children, minorities, African Americans, Hispanics, ethnic minorities, you know, who are preyed upon more by traffickers who are engaged in that horrific activity. And they do that in part because these are individuals who are more susceptible. They're susceptible because of high crime rates in our communities. They're susceptible because in many instances, the right people just don't care. Think about it in this regard. The fate of a poor woman in Africa is much like the fate of a poor woman on the south side of Chicago. That's why these things make a difference. That's why the clarion call goes out to each and every one of you today. Don't look around the room and say you. Look in the mirror and say me. This is who the call goes out to. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can make a difference, but we can't do it with just compassion. We've got to do it with compassion matched equally with actions. And platforms like we're seeing here today, during this 36th annual NBPA conference, gives us all the opportunity to do the right things for the right reasons. Today you've been taking the first step, I believe. There's no question in my mind, at least, about that. But the real challenge will come not because of what you do today at this conference. The real challenge will come as you go back to your respective homes, whether you're on the East Coast or the West Coast or some points in between. The real difference will come when you make up in your mind that I can be a change agent, that I can move the scales of justice, that I'm in this process for the right reasons. People don't elect you to do what you do for no reason at all. You are the true change agents, and I hope you will make a difference. Thank you all so much. Glad to have you.
So I needed to make some final announcements. There's two different areas for your CLE sign up. I believe there's 2 forms at the registration desk and 3 forms at the sign desk in the back. Raise your hand if I said that correctly. Is that right? Reverse. 3 outside, 2 in the back. Also, the reception tonight at the College Football Hall of Fame, it is literally right down right out that door to the back. It starts at 6 o'clock. Okay? Can y'all hear me? Yes. All right, next y'all listening now. All right, so it starts at 6 o'clock. It's gonna be a wonderful affair. Did you want to say more about it? Good. Okay. There's gonna be food there, so make sure that y'all are ready for that. All right, there's some really good food there. Did I miss anything else? Oh, there's Zumba class in the morning. Wellness and fitness starts every morning during the conference at 7 o'clock. There is a Zumba class in the morning. So if you want to wake up at 7 o'clock and get it going, they'll be out there to do it for you. I might not be there with you, but I think that's pretty cool that y'all are doing that. All right? Y'all have a good one.
Thank you so much.
He said, I think he's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Quit.
How about you,